Consciousness is the only reality. Everything that you experience in the outer world is a direct reflection of your inner state of consciousness. This is not a philosophical concept to be admired from a distance. It is the foundational law by which your life operates. You are not the victim of circumstances. You are their origin. Until this truth is deeply grasped and lived, you will continue to believe that people, events, and conditions hold power over you. But when you awaken to the truth that your inner world is primary and your outer world is secondary, you reclaim your divine inheritance as the creator of your reality. Consciousness, in this context, is not mere awareness of thoughts. It is your self-awareness, your sense of being, your assumptions, your beliefs, your persistent thoughts, and your felt inner convictions. These internal movements generate the patterns that unfold in your external life. Every relationship you experience, every condition you face, every success or failure that arises, each is an out-pictured result of your inner assumptions. You may say, "I did not imagine this trouble." But that is because you are only aware of your surface thoughts. The subconscious, which accepts and replicates every dominant feeling and assumption, never fails to bring forth that which you believe, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is why emotional control is vital. If you accept that consciousness is the only reality, then your inner reactions become sacred. They are not small things. They are the seeds from which your future blossoms. Each moment you indulge in fear, resentment, jealousy, doubt, or complaint, you are not merely reacting, you are planting. You are consenting to a future outcome aligned with that state of being. Conversely, each moment you choose peace, gratitude, confidence, and joy, even when circumstances seem to argue otherwise, you are authoring a new future with unwavering authority. The outer world is inert. It has no self-operating power. It is moved by the vibrations of your inner world. What you accept as true within with feeling and persistence must project itself outward in form. This is the spiritual law, honoring and impersonal. It does not reward virtue nor punish sin. It simply reflects what is impressed upon it. That is why no external change will ever last without a corresponding change within. You may change your location, your job, your relationships, but unless you have shifted your inner concept of self, the same patterns will reappear, for they are rooted in consciousness, not in circumstance. So, how does one live by this truth? First, by becoming intensely aware of your inner speech. What are you saying to yourself all day long? What silent conversations are you holding? Are you living in the past, mentally repeating old hurts? Are you rehearsing defeat before even taking a step forward? Or are you walking through life in imagination as the person you desire to be? You must watch your internal world more carefully than anything else, because it is the cause. Everything else is merely the effect. Next, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is not about fantasy or denial. It is about selecting a higher state of being and dwelling in it until it becomes more natural than your old self. When you say, "I am," and follow it with an idea, any idea, you give life to it. So guard those two words. Never use them carelessly. Say, "I am abundant, I am free, I am loved," and feel it deeply. Let these statements of being become more than affirmations. Let them become the assumption that you carry through each moment, regardless of outer appearances. Finally, remember that the greatest form of power is calm certainty. The one who knows that consciousness creates reality does not need to fight or strive. They do not need to react or defend. They simply imagine, feel, and rest in the assurance that what is seen inwardly will soon be seen outwardly. You become what you are conscious of being. There is no exception to this law. When you begin to live from this truth, you stop blaming, you stop chasing, and you start creating, deliberately, joyfully, and powerfully. For consciousness is not only the source of your life, it is life itself. And when you learn to govern your inner world, you gain dominion over your outer one. Reactivity is identification with the outer world. It is the moment when you, as a creative being, forget your power and begin to respond to appearances as though they were fixed realities. To react emotionally to a situation is to declare, "This is true, this has power over me, and I must respond to it." Yet the truth is exactly the opposite. The moment you react, you are pulled out of your position as the creator and assume the role of the created. You abandon the throne of inner authority and give your energy to shadows on the wall. Everything in the outer world is a reflection of your inner assumptions. What appears before you is not causative. It is the echo of previous states of consciousness. To react to it emotionally is like hearing your own voice in a canyon and becoming frightened by the sound. You are responding to an effect and feeding it with your attention. What you feed with emotion, you give life to. And so, reacting becomes a form of unconscious creation. You do not mean to perpetuate unwanted conditions, yet by reacting with fear, anger, or despair, you do exactly that. You renew the old pattern and bind yourself to its repetition. When you refuse to react, you do not suppress or deny your emotions. You transcend them. You look at the outer condition and say, I see you, but I do not give you power. You are not the truth of me. You are a momentary projection, and I will not energize you with belief. In that stillness, you reclaim your creative dominion. You return to the awareness that you are the cause, not the effect. You remind yourself that you are not what happens to you. You are what you imagine, assume, and feel yourself to be. Emotional reactivity is the mind's way of proving that the external world is more real than the internal. It demands your attention and says, look how real this is! You must respond! But the one who understands spiritual law does not take the bait. Instead, they pause, they go within. They shift their attention from what is to what they desire to be. They do not resist the present condition, nor do they submit to it. They rise above it by changing their state. This shift is not always dramatic. Often, it is subtle. A quiet choice to hold your peace instead of your anger, to speak with clarity instead of accusation, to imagine a better outcome rather than replay the current struggle. But it is in these small, repeated choices that your reality transforms. The outer world begins to bend, not because you forced it to, but because you withdrew your agreement from the old and entered a new assumption. You must understand that your reactions are choices, not necessities. They are habits of mind that you can retrain. Every time you feel yourself tightening in fear, anger, or sadness, it is an opportunity to choose again, to step out of the loop of reaction and into the space of creation. In that space, you are free. You are not chained to your past, nor bound by appearances. You are a being of infinite imagination, and you can select a new state of consciousness at will. This is why emotional discipline is so powerful. It is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about becoming focused. When you no longer allow the outer world to dictate your inner state, you gain authority over both. You begin to live deliberately rather than by default. You move through life with intention, knowing that nothing outside you has the power to disturb your peace unless you permit it. The silence of non-reaction is not weakness, it is creative strength. It is the power to say, I am not that, I know who I am, I know what I have imagined, and I will hold to my inner vision regardless of the outer noise. And in doing so, you move mountains, not by pushing against them, but by refusing to see them as obstacles. You are not here to be tossed by the winds of circumstance. You are here to direct the winds with your consciousness. So when the world tempts you to react, remember you are the cause. Withdraw your energy from the illusion and return to the truth within. From that still place, all things are made new. Imagination creates reality. This is not a poetic sentiment or a comforting idea. It is a spiritual law. All that you experience in the outer world is born first in the realm of imagination. Before anything takes shape in the physical, it must exist in consciousness. Imagination is the workshop of reality, the silent and invisible force that molds the events, circumstances, and people in your life. You are always imagining, whether deliberately or unconsciously, and whatever you imagine with feeling becomes the world you walk through. To control emotion, you must first understand this law. Emotional reactivity stems from forgetting that your imagination is the true source of power. When you react to appearances, you imagine more of the same. You dwell on what is, and by doing so you sustain and perpetuate it. But when you deliberately use your imagination to dwell in the end, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you rise above the present circumstance and begin to shape a new reality. The key is to feel the reality of what you desire, not as something far away, not as something that may happen if everything goes right, but as something that already is. Imagination is not idle daydreaming. It is the act of assuming a new state of being, mentally and emotionally, regardless of the evidence before you. If you want to be healthy, you must stop imagining yourself as sick. If you want abundance, you must stop imagining lack. The law does not respond to begging or hoping. It responds to your assumption, what you claim as true for yourself in feeling. Most people imagine unconsciously. They worry, they replay failures, they expect rejection, they anticipate disappointment, and then they are surprised when life mirrors back exactly what they feared. But once you realize that your imagination is creating reality, you must become a vigilant guardian of your inner world. You must choose what you see within yourself more deliberately than anything else. You must select the scenes you replay in your mind, the conversations you rehearse, the outcomes you accept. And you must feel those inner experiences as though they were already facts. This is not about pretending or forcing. It is about aligning your emotional state with your desired outcome. It is about practicing inner vision until it feels natural, until the imagined scene becomes more real to you than the current condition. When you consistently imagine the end, with feeling, you plant a seed in the fertile ground of the subconscious. That seed grows and takes form in your outer world, often through natural and ordinary means, but always according to the state you've assumed. There is no need to strain or struggle. Imagination does not work through effort, but through acceptance. The more effortlessly and confidently you dwell in your desired state, the more quickly it externalizes. It is not about how hard you imagine. It is about how convinced you are within. If your inner world becomes saturated with the feeling of already having what you desire, life cannot help but reflect it. Emotion plays a critical role in this process. Imagination without feeling is weak. It has no creative power. But when you infuse your imagined scene with the emotion that would naturally arise if it were true, you bring it to life. You animate it. You impress it upon the subconscious, which then sets all things in motion to bring it into form. Emotion is the magnet that pulls the imagined into the scene. So, whenever the world presents you with something unwanted, do not react. Create, turn within, see yourself as you wish to be. Feel it, live from that state, even if only for a few quiet moments. This is how you shift reality, not by effort, but by inner assumption. Imagination is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Walk across it daily. Let the unseen become more real to you than the seen. Let the inner world govern the outer. What you imagine with sustained emotion becomes your world. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can resist it. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are the author of them. And once you master the art of imagining the end, the whole of life begins to move in harmony with your vision. Inner stillness is power, not the kind of power the world associates with force, aggression, or domination, but the quiet, unshakable authority that arises from knowing the truth of who you are. When you are inwardly still, you are no longer controlled by appearances. You no longer chase outcomes or fear losses. Instead, you rest in the deep awareness that life responds not to your actions or words, but to your state of being. The one who is still within commands life without speaking, without striving, without pushing. Their stillness speaks louder than noise. Stillness does not mean inactivity or passivity. It means being unmoved by fear, anxiety, and emotional turbulence. It means choosing calm over chaos, faith over doubt, and clarity over confusion. It is the spiritual posture of the Creator. When you are still, you are not reacting, you are observing. And in that observation, you are selecting. You become deliberate in what you allow into your awareness. You stop engaging with conditions you do not wish to multiply. You cease to be a mirror, and you become a light. Stillness is the container for conscious creation. In stillness, you can hear the quiet guidance of your intuition. In stillness, you have space to imagine, to feel, to align yourself with your chosen state of being. The one who lives in inner stillness does not need to fight reality. They create a new one. The world may swirl with distractions and demands, but their inner world is steady. And because the outer reflects the inner, their life begins to take on the shape of that quiet confidence. You do not need to argue with the facts of your current reality. The more you argue, the more real they become to you. Stillness allows you to look beyond the facts and into the truth of possibility. The truth that what is seen is temporary, and what is felt within is eternal. To be still is to say, I do not need proof. I know what I have assumed. I do not need signs. I rest in the feeling of the end fulfilled. This stillness is not something to be acquired. It is your natural state. You return to it by letting go of the need to control every outcome, letting go of the compulsion to respond to every challenge, letting go of the mental noise that says, you must act now, or it will all fall apart. Inner stillness says, all is well. I have imagined, and I remain in that knowing. It is not laziness. It is alignment. It is not avoidance. It is mastery. From this place of inner stillness, your actions become inspired rather than frantic. You move with purpose rather than panic. And when you do act, it is with great effectiveness because your state is aligned. The power of stillness is that it aligns you with your chosen assumption. And from that place, your world bends to match. You do not have to manipulate people or force circumstances. Life organizes itself around your dominant vibration. Stillness allows that vibration to be clear and uninterrupted. When emotions rise and tempt you to react, remember this reaction is easy, but creation requires stillness. Do not give in to the drama of the moment. Return to your breath, return to the vision, return to the feeling of your fulfilled desire. That is where your real power lies, not in fixing the outer, but in remaining true to the inner. The outer must eventually conform to the inner image. This is law. The world often equates stillness with weakness, but it is the opposite. Only the strong can be still in the face of adversity. Only the self-aware can resist the urge to defend themselves or control everything. Only the one who knows their creative power can rest in silence and allow the unseen to unfold. So cultivate stillness not as a moment of retreat, but as your foundation. Begin and end each day in the quiet awareness of your chosen state. Let that silence carry you throughout the day. Let it be your response to fear, to doubt, to delay. In stillness, you remember that nothing has to change out there for everything to shift within. And when it shifts within, the world will follow. Stillness is not empty. It is full of creation. In that space, all things are conceived, aligned, and brought into being. It is the womb of manifestation, the sanctuary of the soul, and the throne of true power. Mastery over self begins with the understanding that no one outside of you has the power to disturb your inner world unless you allow it. The circumstances you face, the people you interact with, and the situations that arise in your life are never the cause. They are effects, reflections of your inner assumptions and states of being. To master the self is to take full responsibility for what you feel, think, and assume. It is not about controlling others or forcing outcomes. It is about becoming so anchored in your chosen state that nothing external can pull you away from it. Every person is walking through life in accordance with their own self-concept, their deeply held beliefs about who they are, what they deserve, and what is possible for them. If your self-concept is rooted in lack, unworthiness, or fear, then you will react emotionally to any event that seems to confirm that belief. But if your self-concept is rooted in confidence, wholeness, and abundance, then you become unmoved by outer appearances. Your reactions no longer spring from insecurity or fear, but from clarity and inner certainty. Self-mastery means observing your thoughts without becoming them. It means allowing emotions to rise and fall without being swept away by them. You do not suppress your feelings, you become aware of them, understand their origin, and choose again. You become the witness to your mind, the observer of your internal world, and the chooser of your dominant state. That is your point of power. Always in the now, always within. To master the self, you must understand that your reactions are never required, they are chosen. Most people live in a state of unconscious reaction, believing they have no control over their emotional responses. But once you become aware of this, you can pause. You can breathe. You can say, I see this condition, I feel this emotion, but I choose not to give it power. I choose not to let it define who I am or how I move forward. That is where transformation begins, not in the world, but in your ability to remain conscious of your state. This level of awareness does not happen overnight. It is cultivated through practice, through observation, through a willingness to take full ownership of your experience. When you are tempted to blame someone else, stop and look within. Ask yourself, what in me has accepted this as true? What belief am I holding that allows this condition to persist? This is not about guilt, it is about power. Because when you see that you created it, you also see that you can uncreate it. You can choose a new belief, a new assumption, a new self-image. Mastery over self also means holding to your vision when nothing around you validates it. It is easy to feel confident when everything is going well. But the true test is when you are challenged. When the old patterns try to reassert themselves, when the world seems to contradict your inner knowing. In those moments, do not react. Return to your center. Remember the truth of who you are. Choose to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled. Even if it feels like nothing is changing, trust that the inner shift has already begun and the outer must follow. The one who masters the self becomes a living embodiment of their chosen reality. They no longer seek validation from the world because they carry the feeling of fulfillment within. They do not fear rejection because they know they are already accepted by the higher self. They do not chase after success because they have assumed the identity of one who is already successful. Their life becomes a natural unfolding of their inner state. And so you must become more interested in your inner alignment than in the outer result. You must become more loyal to your chosen self than to the old identity. You must remain faithful to the feeling of the fulfilled desire, regardless of what the world shows you. This is self-mastery. It is quiet, consistent, and deeply powerful. The outer world is unstable, always shifting. But your inner world can become steady, like the calm surface of a deep ocean. And from that stillness, from that centered awareness, all things flow. When you master yourself, you master life, not by force, but by alignment. Not by domination, but by presence. You become the cause, and the world responds. Persisting in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret that transforms vision into reality. It is not enough to momentarily imagine what you desire. You must dwell in it. You must carry the feeling with you through every moment, allowing it to become the dominant tone of your inner world. No matter what appears on the outside, your task is to remain faithful to the internal reality you have chosen. This is persistence, holding the state of your fulfilled desire so consistently that it hardens into fact. This persistence is not forceful, it is peaceful yet unyielding. It is the quiet decision to remain loyal to the vision, even when there is no visible evidence to support it. To persist means to live as though your desire is already yours. Not someday, not in the future, but now. It means to wake up each day and return to that inner knowing, to walk, speak, and act from the consciousness of the fulfilled state. The world may try to distract you, to draw you back into doubt or lack, but your role is not to react, it is to return. This inner return is everything. When doubt arises, return. When fear creeps in, return. When things seem slow to change, return again. Each return strengthens the assumption and impresses it deeper into the subconscious, where creation begins. You are not waiting for something to happen. You are becoming it. You are assuming the identity of the one who already has it, feels it, and lives from it. The more often you do this, the more natural it becomes, until it no longer feels like effort but like truth. There is great power in repetition. You are always conditioning your mind, either through habits of fear and limitation, or through deliberate persistence in your chosen state. The mind must be trained like a muscle. Left alone, it will wander back to the familiar patterns of the past. But with gentle, consistent practice, it begins to obey. It begins to accept the new state as normal. And once the subconscious accepts a new reality as true, the outer world inevitably reflects it. Persistence is the proof of belief. Anyone can imagine for a few minutes. But can you hold that feeling when your senses tell you otherwise? Can you remain faithful to your vision when reality seems to contradict it? That is the real work. Not forcing the outside to change, but refusing to let the outside dictate how you feel. You are not trying to convince the world, you are convincing yourself. And once you do, the world must follow. This is not about denying what you see, but about giving more importance to what you feel within. What you persist in feeling becomes your new identity, and identity is destiny. If you persist in the feeling of abundance, abundance must come. If you persist in the feeling of health, health must manifest. If you persist in the feeling of love, you will find it expressed in your world. It is law. The outer must reflect the inner, not because you force it, but because you live from it. Persistence also brings clarity. As you remain in the state of the wish fulfilled, you begin to see opportunities, connections, and ideas that were invisible to you before. Your perception changes. Life begins to rearrange itself to match your new assumption, often in ways you could not have predicted. But none of this is possible if you abandon the state too soon. The moment you waver, the moment you let doubt take over, you disrupt the process. That is why persistence is essential. You must be willing to live in the unseen, to trust the inner world more than the outer, to feel the truth of your desire before it becomes physical fact. This is where the transformation happens, not in trying to manipulate external events, but in continuously choosing the inner experience of the end fulfilled. You become the one who has it, and reality conforms. Persistence is not about time, it is about intensity and repetition. You can shift your state in a moment, but to stabilize it, you must persist. You must return again and again until the new becomes natural. And when it does, you no longer try to create. You simply express what you already are. That is true creation. That is the power of the wish fulfilled.